Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 18th of January, comes to you from London. And the news in the UK this morning is that UK inflation has fallen from 10.7% to 10.5%, so barely a move at all. As we saw on this chart here, this data imported from Excel. Of course, in Updata you can import data from pretty much anywhere. And looking at US inflation, we see how it's fallen back to 6.5%. So really, this differential really opening up, and that's showing up in the differential between US interest rates and UK bank base rates. So really, it just shows how the Bank of England really have been asleep at the wheel as far as I'm concerned. This is clear that inflation was coming, and the US had higher rates, all right, that dropped back to, but still at a higher level, and now significantly higher. Says the Bank of England have probably got more to do. Well, they have got more to do. Whether they do it is another thing. So looking at sterling, we're seeing that up this morning, but that really is likely to if that news grows of interest rate rises in the UK, then we're likely to see that. It's showing up in the charts already. We've got a target to 128 on the longer term chart, 124, 127, 50 on the shorter term chart. Remembering this is my weekly, my daily, and my 60-minute chart coming. So basically, long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. This data coming from Refinitiv Icon, but of course you can run Updata on dozens of different data services, so the choice is yours. And if we look at this dollar, we're sitting at 102.03, so really back well below that 105 level, and the euro is looking stronger, sitting at 108.5. So looking stronger there against that weaker dollar. The Japanese yen, interestingly here, the Bank of Japan did nothing much yesterday, and we saw here how there was a bit of a blip, and we're falling back. But the weakening yen is definitely a factor, but the dollar, of course, is weakening too. So that dollar-yen relationship is not quite as good lead indicator as it was because of what's going on in Japan. But the reality is we are seeing dollar weakness, and because of that interest rate environment, we'll almost certainly start to see euro strength and UK sterling strength. Looking at sterling against the euro, we're sitting at 113.61. Again, just ticking up quite substantially there. The inflation number driving that as well. Bitcoin sitting at $21,205. Remembering that we had this upside target to 22,000 given at 17,800 on the longer term chart, and now we've got these shorter term targets. If you're trading Bitcoin, use the 1 minute targets. You're going to find those really, really useful. Looking at the US market, we were up slightly yesterday, and that's why we're seeing most markets up as green on the screen. Looking at the S&P E-mini, the change here is 0.04%, so it really tells us that the markets in the US are going to open flat today. The Nasdaq E-mini up 0.03%, so really no real heads up as to which way the US market's going to open. FTSE future is sitting at 7847, remembering that the UK closing high back in May 2018 was 2878, and 2903 was the intraday high. So we are really very, very close to the UK making new highs there. And that, of course, is very different to what we're seeing in the US market. If we look at the Nasdaq, for example, we are a long way from the new highs. Admittedly, we ran higher up to the end of 2001 than the UK did, but now we're seeing that the UK is outperforming. If you want to do a relative chart, you can really see that performance. The DAX in Germany down slightly. Lower energy prices has helped the DAX lately, and we see this little kickback and move higher, so that's quite significant. And we see the CAC Quarante is up very slightly. Japan was up 1.74% on the spectre that interest rates are not going to go higher there. Still relatively low negative in the world ICE, and we're seeing here that Japanese market still looking good in that low interest rate environment. The Hang Seng was up 0.5% in China. We are, of course, Chinese New Year. The Sensex in India 0.6% higher, still looking very positive, having made new all-time highs recently. And news out this morning that India's population, the demographics are fantastic. India's population is going to surpass that of China, which is seeing a decline in population. The Aussie market was up very slightly, up 0.1%. So that's quite key as well. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute. We've got gold sitting at 1914. Did fall back a little bit yesterday, but again, we're starting to run. 1950 is the level that we've got as targets where we might find some resistance, or we just get to that target. US bond yields down further, sitting at 3.49%, and Apple back above 135. That's quite significant in terms of the tech stocks trying to recover. 130 is the critical level there. Just taking a look across the energy mix. In fact, if we look at markets in energy, we've got the power markets in Europe just all falling heavily. That's going right the way through the Eastern European prices. Remembering this data comes as standard with Updata from OTC Global Holdings with your professional or enterprise systems, which gives you these great histories for every gas and power market in Europe. And looking at the UK, we're seeing a little bit more of a mixed picture further out on the curve, so that's quite interesting as well. And in the UK inflation report this morning, it was interesting just to notice that cheese and milk were milk and cheese were the things that were driving inflation. Well, we are seeing those falling based in the futures market, so it'll be interesting to see. Of course, we did really rocket in 2022. It'll be interesting to see whether that has an impact coming back. Back to the energy mix. So we're looking at Brent crude. Brent is really pushing higher, just is knocking on the door of $87 this morning. We've got an upside target here of $90.60 on the short-term chart, 91.20 there, 87.79 was given. So they really are seeing some of these targets now starting to be met. So crude oil starting to look quite a lot more bullish. So looking at US nat gas, down 4% here this morning. We did dive away. Interesting to see how we're just pushing down towards those targets. We did have some upside moves and then downside targets just being met. So looking quite bearish there, down 4%. Coal has sitting at 171. We're due a contract change shortly on coal. So this could be interesting. But we're seeing here coal having been $350 for API2, falling all the way back to 150, halving. Emissions looking very weak below this €80 mark, and 77.50 is the floor. This is like a descending triangle pattern, so this is quite a bearish move here, and we've got mixed targets. It'll be interesting to see on the 1 minute chart which ones will win out. If you're trading emissions, you want to be using these 1 minute targets. Gas prices, we've been up and down like a yo-yo this morning. We are sitting literally at $58. So we have got some upside targets here. So we're seeing a little bit of a recovery coming in here. Watch those targets again on your 1 minute charts. If you're trading gas, you really need to be looking at these 1 minute targets kicking in. So it's quite interesting just to see a little bit of a recovery here. But of course, it's counter trend. So we've got to be aware that it's a counter trend move. MBP sitting at 149, 150 is the level there. That's the previous low, and that's the level now where support, what was support, is becoming resistance. So we need to be very aware that 150 level is really critical for MBP, so keep an eye on that. German power down slightly this morning. We have nudged that 150 mark, so that's really quite key for German power. So just you need to keep an eye on that 150 level. If we break below there, we've got mixed targets on the charts, and we went out to clients this morning as neutral in our morning call report covering all European energy. If you want a trial of that, just let me know and we'll put you on a trial. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.